Welcome to the Thought Vault, where we learn to unlock our minds to live with more purpose and bold intention. I'm your host, Emily Vermillion. Take a deep breath and let's get started. On today's episode, I have a very special guest with me, but we did share one mic and had to sit next to each other, so you might hear some bumps and thumps and our chairs creak, but it's a great show and I'm excited for you to tune in. Hey everyone, welcome to the Thought Vault. This is Emily and I have a special guest with me. His name is Adam.
Hello, hello.
And he is my husband. So it is almost Valentine's Day, and what better time to talk about love than the week of commercialized love? So a little backstory, I'll preempt this conversation. We're kind of theming this episode on how we've kept it alive, basically, how we've kept our relationship alive. So a little backstory, Adam and I have been together for practically 19 years now. We will be married 10 years this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we've grown up basically together, and we've grown through a lot of changes and personal, journeys and all the things. We have 2 kids now that are toddlers, 4 and 3, and have careers. So, there's a lot going on here. So we thought we would just share our words of wisdom. We aren't experts, and our relationship is not perfect, as I'm sure you will find out in this conversation. But we're just going to keep it real with you guys and share basically, how we've kept it alive. So I'm going to ask Adam some questions, and he may ask me some. We're just going to see where this conversation goes. Over the years, I've gotten a lot of questions about our relationship, through Instagram, social media, the blog. So we will get to some questions that I've gotten from you guys specifically, and then we'll just kind of give you, cliff notes of what we do to try to stay in love with each other, right? Okay, first things first, what would you say is like a key component to our relationship that is kind of the glue?
Well, first things first, before the first things first, thanks for having me on the show.
Yes.
I finally got the call up to the big leagues. I was wondering when that was going to happen. So excited to be here and talk to everybody. But for real, first and foremost, would be that, we both love the Lord first. And
yes,
I know that your listeners are, well aware of your faith and, how that has benefited you. God's grace is abundant and sufficient. And, if we didn't have each other, we'd be fine with God's grace, right? But with God's grace and being able to, to have our marriage as a picture of our relationship with God, that is the absolute most important thing that I can say. And I'm sure that everybody thought they would know that, or I would say that. But I mean, and what I mean is kind of, let me put it this way, is that if we're having problems in the marriage, I can look and I'm probably not reading my Bible as much as I normally would be, or I'm probably not praying as much. We all go through waves where it's poured into our church and into the faith. And then there's some times where it's not so much, right? I mean, I know you feel the way, same way, right?
Yeah.
And usually the two go hand in hand. I mean, very rarely would I be having a great marriage and a terrible spiritual life, or vice versa. Usually those go hand in hand. But I know that was like the easy answer, so we can get into some other stuff if you want. What do you think about that? What's your first and foremost?
I would agree with you in that respect, because I know through my relationship with Christ, it's been important for me to understand how my relationship with God relates to my relationship with you. And I think when I correctly put you and God in your rightful positions in my heart, my relationship is much better with you. And what I mean by that is a lot of times we can put our spouse on this pedestal that they're going to give us everything we need in life, like all the companionship, all the love, all the support, all the perfect companionship. But in reality, that's not true. Like, you're a person and you're going to fail and you're not going to be perfect, same for me. I'm not either. So when I'm putting Christ first, the pressure's off of you, so to speak. Like my expectation for you to um, meet all my needs isn't on your shoulders. And so that helps me just not have these insane expectations of you, which is healthy for our relationship because honestly, God is the only person that's going to fulfill every need in my life, not you. And sometimes I think it's easy to mix it up because you're physically here,
Yeah, absolutely.
and you're physically like picking up things and moving things in the house. Like I see your presence, kind of. So, it can be where the struggle can be placed on, in that
Right.
respect. So for me, yeah, I think us being believers and having our own independent relationship with God is the absolute glue.
Yep.
It's the foundation. So yeah, I think nurturing your relationship with God is primo advice number one when it comes
Yep.
to a marriage. You got to be pouring into your relationship with God first.
For sure. And so, second, I will say, trying to impress each other and still caring what each other thinks. And, what I mean by that is like, you got to love yourself first too. Not first, but you got to love yourself too, right? And Emily is a very fit person. She is all about self motivation. What's the word I'm talking about? You know what I mean? Self improvement. Maybe I could say that. She's always trying.
Personal development.
Personal development. Yeah. You're always trying. Now she looks a lot better than I do. I'm rocking the dad bod, and I love it. But I still care.
I'm rocking a mom bod. Let's not get carried away.
But I mean, I still care. I'm keeping my mind sharp, and I work out every once in a while. But I still try to impress you every day, and I think you try to impress me too. And so on the flip side of that, I'm gonna give you a secret, and I don't even know if you've noticed this about me or not, but I give you a compliment every single day. Did you know that? You didn't?
No, I mean, you
Man,
do.
I need some better compliments then, because, and I did the math right before this. If we've been together 19 years and I've given you a compliment for 365 days, and I realize you're like, nah, you haven't given me a compliment every day. All right, if I miss a day or two here, I've probably given you more than one compliment in a day. So anyway, back to my math. 19 years, 365 days, that's almost 7,000 compliments in your lifetime just from me, right? And that's got to make you feel good, because it makes me feel great when you give me a compliment. Even if I'm like out working in the yard and you're like, oh man, yeah, you look great, sweating, working. It makes me want to work harder.
I do like seeing Adam do manual labor.
Oh, Lord. But, and I appreciate that compliment. And so I'll say that is a secret. Take care of yourself, because everybody loves that, that little bit of affirmation once.
Well, and I think it rolls into other things too. Of course, I'm going to say this as a life coach, but honestly, guys, when you're taking care of yourself and you are doing things that are going to care for you, you are going to mentally feel better. You're going to physically feel better. Like it's going to be an outflow of everything. Like it's a culmination. So taking care of yourself is serving you, and it's serving everyone in your life. I mean, you hear that so often, but self-care is truly important because it makes you a better, more well-rounded person. I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say even being interested in something that is healthy. And I don't know exactly that what that is for everybody, but like you're doing your podcast and life coach and all that stuff, and that benefits us as well. And so it's impressive, and I can sit there and be proud of you after 20 years of knowing you.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that kind of plays into keeping things new and interesting. So, I mean, well, let's back up a bit, because you said like you like to hear positive words or encouragements. So, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the 5 love languages, but if you guys are looking for ways to kind of connect with your spouse or change things up or get to know each other better, that's a great resource. It's something you can Google. You don't have to read the whole book, but every one of us have different ways that we like to be loved or that we feel love. And so Adam likes affirming words and things like that. I like acts of service, which is probably why I like it when he's working on things around the house.
You like your acts of service and quality time.
Yeah. So just, I guess, knowing those things about each other, kind of what each other uh, feels joyful over, like, wow, he
Hmm.
really must care about me because XYZ. Some people's love language are gifts. So when someone sends you flowers, like that really lights you up. So I think taking time to understand that about each other, like what are the things that really make you feel connected to the other person and that they care for you. So me and Adam
And
kind of learned that. I don't know,
so
maybe why did we learn that? I mean,
I
why did
feel like we started talking
we
about
just
that
looked it up?
in the marriage conference we had at church
Yes,
at one
that's
time,
right. Mhm.
and then we started looking it up, and I gotta say, like, I mean that, and there's another book that I'll talk about here in a minute, but the five love languages, when we nailed that down, probably was like the single one thing that I could put my hand on is like what happened that made your relationship better, because I realized I guess so she's acts of service, right? And I'm quasi handy, even though I'm an accountant. And so it's like I try really hard, and some comes out great, some stuff not. And I guess I thought she was trying to put me outside in the yard just to get me out of the house and watch me work, right? But then, whenever we went through the five love languages, I realized, oh, she really thinks that if I improve, something that we both have, like let's take the house for example. If I, do home improvements to increase, what the house looks like and how everything is, she sees that as me caring and loving for her. Not like, which might not mean a hill of beans to somebody else, but for
Mhm.
Emily it was. And so I'm not even kidding. Like in a summer, I built a deck, built a patio. I mean, what else? Island.
Mhm.
I've got a
Yeah.
pizza oven in the works.
Yeah, so I
I
think it
mean,
just it's worth it. Like those are investments that give you big returns. Like it's not you cannot get complacent.
mhm.
I think that's in a
and
nutshell.
and
Like you can't be complacent with your relationship.
and and knowing
What you put in, you get out.
right, and knowing somebody's love language. Well, actually, I don't not necessarily agree with that. What you put in, you don't get out. But we can talk about that too later. But knowing somebody else's love language also is important whenever let's say like somebody's is gifts, right? Like I think my mom is her one of her love languages is gifts, and she showers us with gifts, and it is wonderful because I know that's something that is important to her. That's her love language, and that's literally how, like literally her telling us, how much she loves us. You know what I mean? So it kind of works both ways. Knowing the other person, you're able to see, oh well, they really care about me because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. If you could say, how does that relate to like how do we deal with conflict in our relationship? So I think like over the course of growing and learning and becoming parents and all these big things in life, I mean, if I had to say what's the best way to deal with conflict is just to communicate. Like
Right.
just talk about straight up, this is how that made me feel. And
Hmm.
like there's no reason to like add to it or like take away.
That's
If you
fair.
just explain that one simple thing, then I think there's clarity that can be revealed to both people on
Hmm.
both sides.
I like a cooling off period. I don't think you bring it up right away.
Yeah, you
You
don't
know,
have to. I think you have
when
to
you're
recognize that. Like
upset
some
and
things
somebody
you
else is
you got to
upset, I
walk
mean,
away from it and come
you
back to it.
right. And
One thing that my mom always told us is don't try not to let the sun go down on your anger. That's
right.
always a good tip. And something that's always been, I don't like to hang on to things but I'm quicker to just forgive and move on than Adam can be sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, so like we've had to adjust to that, but I think the biggest thing is just communicating.
Yep, I agree. That's a hard one. I mean, I don't have much to add there because we're not the best at arguing. I will admit, but it's something that I hope we are focused on and get better at. Takes two to tango, babe.
Yeah. So what would you say has been one of the things that we do well that keeps us interested in each other?
Is this TV mature or?
I mean,
I think everybody knows where I'm getting at with that. I think we do that well and often, as many times as possible, and we have fun with it. And I don't know why you wouldn't. You know what I mean? You got to be intimate.
yes. Yeah, you
You
do.
didn't know what I was talking about until right
No, I
there.
did. No, I did know. I did know. I'm just like trying to respond to that. I mean, I think that, that's a huge factor. I mean, when you're in a marriage, your intimacy is like, it's the thing that's the one thing you do with that person that you don't do with anyone else. So, and that's by design. I mean, God made us, he gave us the gift of that. So it has to be a priority to both people. Um, and everyone has to have their own comfort level and what they
Sure.
want, but again, I hate to say communicate, but it is true. Like, communicate about that. I mean, it can be uncomfortable or like weird at first, but just talk about it. I mean, literally just talk about your expectations of that area of your relationship.
Sure.
And if you're both talking about it, then even just talking about it, you feel more connected because you're able to be like honest and vulnerable, and that brings a connection as well. So I mean,
Yep.
intimacy is a big part of a healthy relationship, hands down.
Yep.
I don't know what else to say about that
That's
without talking about
that's a
that
huge duh.
anymore. Yeah. But apart from that, what else would you say? Like, what are some other things that you have to say about how we keep things interesting apart from that? I mean, just in general. Because, I mean, after we've been together for so long, like, y'all, we know everything. Like, Adam be like, oh, you remember? Or have I ever told you the story I did? I'm like, you've already told me that, like, literally 30 times. Like, I know that story. I could tell you the story myself.
I am a storyteller.
So we don't have, like, new stories. And any relationship gets to that point, I mean, that's why they call it the honeymoon phase, because there's new things to learn and new things to do, and you don't have all this history. So every relationship is bound to get dull at some point. So how do you keep it from getting dull, I guess,
Well,
is my...
I
What do you
think
think we do well with that?
we laugh a lot.
Yes, we do laugh a lot.
We are funny by nature.
And we try to seek out things that are funny. Like, if we haven't laughed in a while, like, we'll watch comedy shows, like,
Right.
just to laugh.
Or we will talk in different languages like this, where I have
Accents,
the Russian accent, and you
Yeah.
can be the British girl. And it's weird but fun, right?
Yeah.
And so we try new things.
Yeah,
And
stop the monotony.
like honestly, when we first got married, I think it was, I was like, I am never eating sushi in my life. Why would I ever eat raw fish and rice? That sounds terrible. And then, you're like, are you kidding me? Sushi's
Yeah.
great, right? And now we love it. We have it almost every Friday night if we can.
Mhm.
And so we try new things. Back before COVID, we traveled and went to new cultures and did all that. Hopefully we can get back to that again. But like, honestly, I can say that I'm never bored with you. Like, I don't get bored. And I don't know if that's just a product of the way we live our life or whatever, but
Mhm.
like, I can't remember a time where I was just like straight up bored.
Right. And I think part of that too is like we just both try to be super supportive of each other when we're doing new things. Like, Adam's big thing this last entire year, you guys, it was growing grass, like grass out in your yard.
That did not sound right at all. The lawn.
The lawn.
Lawn care.
I like had
Oh, Lord.
my brain completely like shut off mid sentence. So Adam wanted to overhaul our front yard, basically.
Renovate. It's called renovate.
And so you would not believe the amount of information I now know about grass. And I literally did not want to hear one thing about it. But when he would start talking about it, I just let him roll. And I just was like, oh, yeah, being interested in this conversation. But that was fun for him. And he enjoyed it because he was challenging himself and like, learning something new. And that's fun. And that's the same with me. Like, when I'm having all these epiphanies about what I want to create and offer you guys or do, like with the podcast or with now life coaching and stuff, he's always been a sounding board for me. Like, I've always felt like I could talk to him and he'll give me input. So it makes the conversation interesting. So like, I would say, like, try new hobbies. Like, if y'all are
Right.
just in a rut and you're doing the same thing every day, go get mountain bikes and start mountain biking at parks or something.
Mhm.
Like, do something new together that you can both be like energized over, because it is so easy to just get caught up in the freaking everyday humdrum doing the same thing over and over, like Groundhog's Day. You guys know the stat I tell you all the time, but like 90% of our days are completely repetitive of the day before, even as much as like what we think about is exactly the same thoughts we had the day before. So you have to interrupt that. And that's the same with your relationship. Like, if you don't want it to be dull, you have to keep doing new things.
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah.
And for the record, the yard does look like a golf course.
Yes, it does. Yes.
And it will
And I
continue.
and I
It will continue to
and
get
that's
better.
been a little pep in Adam's step because I make sure to tell him like the yard looks great, like it looks great, and
Right.
so he's like, yes, like he's reaping all these rewards, like the yard looks good, he's getting affirmation from me, and like literally because he's told everyone in our family about the yard, everyone in our family compliments him too, so he's really worked this whole system out.
They have not updated the Google Earth picture yet. I cannot wait for that day.
Oh my goodness. So I think, that's something that Adam and I have done well, like just trying to keep us interested in each other's like excitements and what we're learning. And we try to keep doing new things and experiencing new things, which has kept, this positive energy going.
And you said learn. Let me back up to that because I continue to learn about you every day, and I've realized now that men will never ever learn everything about women, or else the world would be a much different place, right? But and y'all probably know everything about a man, but I continue to learn something about you weekly. I don't want to say daily because that's a lot, like, but at least weekly, and it's interesting. So I ran across this podcast. It was a Cliff Notes version of Gretchen Rubin's book about the four tendencies. And for those that don't know, there's what she said is like each person falls into one of four categories. And I mean you can Google it, but long story short, Emily is a questioner and I am an obliger. And what that means is it's how you respond to expectations. And so an obliger will respond to external expectations almost 100% of the time, but almost never meet internal expectations if there are external ones to be met. So, for example, that is your yes man. And that's what I am. Whereas Emily is a questioner. And whenever I realized that, and I made her take the quiz, it was a couple of years ago. It was like a light switch, almost like I said the love language book was about. And it was so. I know this is getting way too deep into this without a lot of context, but I knew that if I told Emily, "Hey, I need to do X because Y and Z," there was a lot better chance she was going to be okay with X. Whereas I might have in the past just said, "Hey, I gotta go do X, bye," and then you'd be like, "What?" Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah.
And so we continue to learn about each other, and that was huge. And it was, I was like, how did I not figure that out in whatever, like 18 years before?
Yeah.
How am I just figuring this out now?
Yeah, I mean, I loved when you had listened to that podcast episode because I had never heard of that book, but hearing that from you was helpful for me too because it explained how you will like say yes, 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 and then just be
And
hit
then
a wall.
get run into the
Yeah.
ground. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes your yeses would prioritize like with different things. So like work, you would say yes a lot at work. So at home you'd be like more agitated
Right.
or, whatever, because you're obliging so many different areas of being obliging in so
Right.
many areas. So it's so helpful to learn, and just be understanding of that. I mean, so like we mentioned the five love languages, Adam Gretchen Rubin, is the
The four tendencies.
the four tendencies. That's the author of that one. And then I will say too, like we mentioned the marriage conference we went to. So that was held by our church. And a huge takeaway for me from that marriage conference was the pastor speaking mentioned how one of his little ways that he helps handle conflict. And I should have mentioned this when we were kind of talking about like, what do we do to handle conflict? But he said that he just started, that rule of thumb people say, like, when you're pointing your finger at someone, there's always 30 fingers pointing back.
Yep.
And so that's supposed to, like, cause you to pause and reflect. But he said one of the things that he likes to do is when his wife would be, like, nagging him or upset or whatever, he was upset with his wife, he would ask himself quickly, like, was this an offense against me or an offense against God? And that kind of helped him have a much better response to his wife or an approach. So, like, for me, that was huge. So, I mean, I use that a lot in my own thoughts. Like, why am I so mad about, or when I'm getting really heated over something, I like pause and I'm like, wait, like, would God be mad at this or not? And then that helps me like whoo,
Yeah.
like woo-saw, like calm down and like get better perspective so that when I approach you, I'm not like screaming at you about leaving the wet towel on the bed. I'm just simply asking like, hey, you left the wet towel on the bed again. Can you like not do that? Because it makes the bed soaking wet and it's just annoying to me. So it's like I can approach it like kind of with humor and like just nice rather than like, you left the towel on the bed again, and like this crazy response for that, which
Right.
like isn't warranted. So I think that's a great way for you to like just engage with your partner when there is conflict. And that way your perspective and your approach to it is tempered in the right way, I guess is what I'm trying to
Yep.
say.
I mean, I think that also works with kids too. I
Oh,
mean,
yes, for
like
sure.
if our son wants to sleep with his cars, I mean that was an example used by the pastor that led that conference, and is something that we've dealt with in our home. Like if Banks wants to sleep with his little cars, I mean, why? Who am I to say no? That's not an offense against God,
Yeah, that's a
right?
great example. And yeah, to bring the kids into the mix, I mean, we should probably talk about that for a minute. I know this episode's getting a little long, but talking about kids, that was a great point,
Yeah.
by the way.
Segue.
Yes.
You want me to segue to the kids?
Yeah, so
Okay.
like how have we managed with being parents basically? Like I don't think we can wrap that up
Well,
into one simple conversation.
no,
We may have to do this again,
that's
but
V2.
yeah, that's the second volume to this conversation. But to give you guys like quick points, what do you think are some of the great things that we've done that have helped us? I mean, we're not perfect, but
In raising children?
yeah.
Oh man, you put me on the spot there.
I
I
know
mean,
one. Do you want me to start?
yeah, start.
I would say the one thing that's helped our relationship survive through parenting and becoming parents is having our kids on a schedule.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. And making sure that the other person is getting sleep. Like you can tell who's given, more and who needs that little bit of rest time. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I think we do a good job of, there might be a night where you realize that I've woke up with the kids 3 times.
Hmm.
And that might mean in the morning you creep out of bed, make sure that our door is shut, and make sure that the kids are quiet and let me sleep an extra
Yeah.
30
Like
minutes. Right?
sharing. Yeah. The burden
Right.
of
Sharing the
that, the
burden.
brunt.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I would say too, guys, with like COVID, we've all had to adjust our situation. Some of us have, and we've had to like figure out new balances. And so it's really helpful to kind of talk that out and have expectations because like I've had to rework how I work because Adam's here and he has to have like a quiet area and a dedicated, space to work, which in a nutshell like completely interrupted my normal routine with the kids. So like I've had to adjust to that and Adam's been helpful in that too and he has adjusted his situation and his schedule a bit to accommodate the things that like are part of my routine so it's not too disruptive. So I think, in a nutshell, like sharing duties and talking about things, like even when Adam was working out of the house, he would come home and know that I'd been with the kids, all day or whatever. And so you took over bath time a lot
Yeah.
when you were working out of the house.
Right.
Because it's like you would come home and that would give me like a solid, 30 minutes,
Hmm.
45 minutes where I wasn't having to interact with the kids. Not having to, you guys know what I mean. But like Adam was getting to interact with the kids. And that was kind of a special time for you because that's when you would like
Right.
play your guitar with the kids and sing with them.
I literally just did that.
Yeah. Yeah, he did that tonight. So like that was an expectation like we kind of had set and I looked forward to that. And that was, not that y'all know what y'all know. I don't have to explain my
Hashtag
my
mom
reason.
life.
Yeah. But it's like, I got to look forward to knowing like, okay, I'm going to have 45 minutes tonight to like sit if I wanted to, clean up the kitchen without being interrupted, like whatever it was. And Adam took over that duty and it was just a reprieve for me. So I think you kind of need to talk about that, like, and share with each other
And
because when you're
yeah,
getting burnt out, that's when you
right.
start getting mad.
Oh,
And so if you
100%.
just communicate it, it'll mitigate a lot of that
But
resentment.
because at the beginning part of quarantine, I would say we were not butting heads, but we were bumping into each other
Yeah.
accidentally because we hadn't had that conversation of, hey, hun,
What's it going to look like now?
I start working at 8:00, so I need my little area like not excavated. What's the word? evacuated.
Yeah.
I don't need any
Yeah.
rugrats,
Yeah.
or I don't, you can't be working out right next to where I've got to be working. Like I got to start at 8. And
Mhm.
so then you had to adjust your schedule so you could knock out your stuff before that.
Right.
And then I knew that, okay, I normally take a lunch when I'm at work. So maybe I take a lunch and help out during the day around
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
Right. And, that was a learning process, but it didn't work until we kind of just laid out, this is what I need and this is what I can give.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So, yeah, I think as far as kids go, you have to have a schedule because that's very helpful. Because for Adam and I, bedtime, after bedtime, is time that me and him get to reconnect and still have a relationship, outside of just normal work responsibilities and home responsibilities and kid responsibilities. So, having a routine helps you build out that time for each other, and then talking about what each other can do to help each other,
Yeah.
basically.
But I
Um,
just kind of like talking about random stuff because it's a good, like, escape from the workday. It's escape from mom and dad life. I mean, we talk about politics during the election. We've been
mhm.
talking about the COVID vaccine. We're talking about random stuff. The stuff that you talk about on your podcast, the stuff
Yeah.
that's going on at my work. But like, that's a good time for us to kind of reset.
Yes.
You
And
know.
so I think that's important for your relationship. You have to make sure that you're investing in each other, and still connecting with each other in that way. So it's important. It's important to have a routine. It doesn't have to be
Hmm.
down to the minute every day. And sure, some days go long or get messed up, but it's just a normal rhythm, I guess, is that we have a schedule, we
Yep.
stick to it, and we have that time at the end of our day to connect and like have time to
Right.
decompress.
And a
So,
lot of times it turns into us finding, Netflix and chill for married people is actually Netflixing and actually chilling.
yes.
Um, and so it's more of a,
Having a show to look forward
have a show.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, and be excited
And,
about, "Ooh, what's gonna happen tonight?"
and then it's like, we stay up later than we should. And we're like, crap, we should go to bed. But then we're
Yeah,
having fun together. And you're like, you know what? I'll sleep when I'm older.
yeah. So, I think in a nutshell, this episode, we just kinda wanted to give you guys, I think, a bird's eye view of what we've done or cultivated or tried to learn.
Maybe next time you can ask me more specific questions. Like,
Yeah.
tell me about a time when.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. I'll have you back
Because
on.
I mean, yeah, we didn't even talk about like, we barely talked about kids. That's obviously been huge for us. We don't,
Yeah.
what was it like when I traveled 5 days a week and you stayed at home with a dog? You
Yes,
know,
that was a totally
like
different season of our
that's an interesting.
relationship.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah. Yes, it is our hope that marriage is successful for people because marriage is a good thing and it's an opportunity to grow. And again, Adam mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but our relationships are reflections of our relationship with Christ. And if you keep that in mind, I think how you prioritize your partner will change and how you
Hmm.
think about them will change because my relationship with you has improved and strengthened my relationship with God because through the good seasons
And
and
vice
the
versa.
difficult seasons I've poured my I've had to rely on Christ, right?
Right.
And so that has shaped and shifted our marriage and has done the same for my relationship with God, and I think that's the unique component we have as believers in our marriage.
Right.
Um, I
Like I want God
it
to
would
be
be
proud in
hard.
our
Yeah,
marriage.
exactly. It would be hard to be married and not have Christ,
Yeah,
right?
I 100% agree.
Yeah. So hopefully this is an
It's
encouragement to you guys.
Yeah, and so I mean, if there are unbelievers that are listening, I mean, God bless you. If you're having a hard marriage, I mean, turn to God.
Yeah,
Try it and pray.
that's right. And we do pray a lot. That's something else we do.
Yeah,
We try to be intentional with praying. And we could do more of that, but
sure. We
you know,
always could.
yeah. But praying as a couple together, huge, huge tip as well. So, okay, we'll leave you with that, everyone. Be sure to share this episode, tag me, and I'll tag Adam.
You'll tag the Russian
Yeah,
accountant.
he thinks it's so funny when I tag him. I get more views on things because I think Instagram's tired of just seeing me hanging out on there.
Being a dashing redhead doesn't hurt either.
Right, yeah. So share this episode, tag me. And make sure that you're subscribed to the show so you get notified every time a new episode launches. And please leave a review. That is like gas to the podcast world. I need that for the podcast to go far. So it's helpful when you guys leave a review. Make sure that you are in our insiders group, boldpearls.com/insiders. You can click the link in the show notes to jump into our private Facebook group where I do live trainings and lots of community stuff going on in there. So until next time, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Go live with bold intention, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.